introduce myself and then talk about what we're going to cover through today's session. But really quickly, my name's Nanika. I'm an associate director at the Red Pen. I've been around for 8 years and work with students from grade 8 through 12 on building their profile, making the right curriculum and subject selection choices, and applying to destinations across the globe. Through today's session, we are going to spend some time talking about the different curricula that are out there, how to make choices in terms of, choosing an Indian curricula, choosing an international curricula within each section as well, which one you should move forward with, depending on your preferences, depending on your skill sets, and depending on your long-term goals. We also will spend some time talking about subject selection, depending on career pathways, areas you might want to pursue. What are the important subjects that you should keep in mind when making these selections? Yeah. So with me, I have my co-presenter, Avita, here today. Avita, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Avita. I'm one of the senior consultants with the team. I can see some of my students here, so it's good to see you guys. And I hope that, we kind of get to answer a lot of the questions that you guys have about curriculum and subject selection today.
Lovely. Avita, you can move to the next slide. Great. So I'm going to spend a quick minute telling you about our admits this year. A lot of the competitive Ivy League and a lot of the other Ivy Plus and other competitive universities in the US, as well as ones internationally across the UK, Canada, liberal arts schools in India, Singapore, Hong Kong, we have seen a much larger number of students applying to each of these destinations. And of course, every university has a limited number of cohort that they can fill year on year. So the percentage of admits is decreasing. It is kind of, the admit rate for universities as prestigious as Harvard is under 5%. Similarly for Columbia, Yale, Brown, University of Pennsylvania, Dartmouth as well is between a 5 and a 7%. But however, the students that have worked with us, we have seen a large cohort of our students, about more than 45% of our students that have worked with us, that have considered prestigious universities like Yale, been admitted to their top choices. A lot of what goes behind this, of course, the names may sound daunting. A lot of these names, amongst other schools such as University of Oxford, Cambridge, a lot of the competitive schools like HKU, SMU. I know a lot of these universities are at the top of a lot of your heads and definitely could be dream schools for a lot of you that are considering applying to the US, UK, and other destinations. I am going to spend some time talking about the different factors that these students kept in mind when kind of considering their subjects and their board, and how that has been significant and important when helping them create a robust profile on the academic as well as the non-academic side when applying to competitive schools. Avita, we can move to the next slide. So far, through 2020-24, we've received over 4 million in scholarships just through the early round of admits, mainly students that have applied ED to a lot of the schools that have worked with us, which is a significantly high number for those of you that are considering scholarships. And of course, it wouldn't hurt for any of us to get a certain amount of that. Avita, we can move forward. Great. So before we kind of spend some time talking about the different curricula that are out there, how to kind of make a choice as to which curriculum would be best suited to you, what are the subjects, I want to give you a little bit of a holistic perspective on the different components of a global application, and then talk a little bit more about the data and the importance of that. So as you can see through this slide here, there's your data, there's your talent, and your voice. These are the three factors that are within your sphere of influence, factors that you can control, that you have time from grade 8 through 12 to work on. And there are other factors that are, of course, out of your control that you can't do much about. Data definitely is your most important component of your application, regardless of the destination that you are applying to. There's no shying away from the importance of good grades, the importance of, a competitive subject mix that includes core subjects, the importance of standardized test scores as well. Again, as a lot of you may be reading, a lot of universities are bringing back the SAT or the ACT as a compulsory component. We just had an announcement where Yale did the same. And of course, your overall grade. So everything from grade 9 through 12 matters whereas your application is concerned, specifically for the US, where they look at your transcripts from grade 9 first term onward. So that's your data, and that's definitely the largest part of your application. Of course, you then have your talent, which is your extracurriculars. And, of course, important to focus on 2 to 3 extracurriculars in depth rather than focusing on a breadth of them. Another factor that has proven to hold importance and has helped students get admitted to top schools is by showcasing their unique talent. Universities, admissions officers that review your applications, that speak with you, that meet you in person when they are, in your particular city, or when you join webinars that they conduct and have conversations and ask them questions. It definitely does help for them to see something unique that you've done. They want to know who you are. They want to know what motivates you, what you're passionate about, how are you different from all the other applicants that are applying, what makes you stand out. So that's another important component, whereas your talent is concerned. Leadership potential is, of course, always looked at favorably. So leadership doesn't necessarily have to mean head boy or head girl or house captain at school. Leadership can be showcased in many other forms as well. So showcasing leadership by, starting something for your society, doing something entrepreneurial in terms of starting a business of your own, all of these factors lead to showcasing your leadership potential. All of this comes through a letter of recommendation that your school's counselor will write. Depending on the destination, you could need from 1 to 3 letters of recommendations that would be submitted. Again, this is within your sphere of influence and something that you should focus on now. And then, of course, your voice, which is what you focus on in the second half of grade 11, where it's finally putting everything down, pen to paper, all the activities, all the stories that you have to say. You finally have to put that together through a lot of the essays that you have to write. Some destinations require more than the others. For example, the UK has one personal statement. A lot of the destinations in Europe as well as Southeast Asia require a letter of motivation, which is a one single page document where you talk about, what you want to study, skill sets that you have related to that subject area, extracurriculars and skill sets that you showcase, that will help you be a competitive applicant for the major that you're applying into. Whereas other destinations like the US and liberal arts schools in India have a lot more essays that you have to focus on. Not all of these essays are academic in nature. In fact, a lot of them are very reflective and require you to talk about experiences that you've had, how you've given back to the community, how you've showcased your intellectual curiosity, why you want to apply for a particular major, why you want to attend a particular school. And of course, your application form, your resume, and some liberal arts schools and some smaller schools in the US like to see that you have showcased a particular keen interest in that particular university by showcasing demonstrated interest. That can be done by being in touch with admissions officers, meeting them when they come to your city, attending webinars, sending emails with specific questions, of course, not covering everything that's on the website, attending alumni events. So these are different ways, of course, applying based on your application strategy, applying early in the early application round, whereas it could be ED or EA, are different strategies that you can use, whereas your voice is concerned, and you're finally executing everything that you're interested in. Yeah. There are a few other factors that are out of your sphere of influence that I'm not going to spend too much time talking about. But of course, for students that are considering financial aid, you are looked at, you are put in a separate pool depending on the finances that the university does decide to give towards scholarships and aid. Legacy status, again, there could be a student you're applying and your friend is applying and his father went to Brown. And in that case, of course, there's nothing you can do. A lot of the universities do look at legacy. That may help. Um, Again, these are factors that are outside your influence. Institutional priorities as well. Universities are, institutions, they're a business. They are looking to put together a particular cohort of students. So there might be, university that has a philosophy department that they've just opened and they're looking to admit a lot more philosophers, right? So again, these are factors that you can't do anything about, but it's just important that you're aware of them. Demographics as well. Universities are looking for a lot of diversity on campus. They have seen a lot of students from your tier 1, tier 2 cities, and they are looking at the tier 3 and tier 4 as well. So again, if you're applying and someone with a similar profile on an academic as well as an extracurricular front matches what you have to offer or put together, they might have a certain advantage purely due to demographics. Again, we do not expect you to relocate to a tier 3, tier 4 city or make any changes there, but it's just important that you are aware. Through today's session, I'm going to spend some time talking about the data component, how the strength of your curriculum is important, how you can strengthen your curriculum if it isn't one that is considered to be most competitive. Subjects, of course, subject selection is very, very important. It's actually a lot more crucial than even your curriculum selection. So we will spend some time talking about the core, non-core subjects that you can consider depending on your area of interest. Whereas the Indian curricula is concerned, there are three kinds of them. There's your CBSE, which is the most widely recognized. It is considered to be the most robust and rigorous curriculum of the three Indian curricula, which is your CBSE, your ISC, and then your state board, which in Mumbai is the HSC, for example. The CBSE definitely is considered to be stronger, and the ISC somewhere in the middle, and then you have your state board, which is HSC in Maharashtra, which is considered to be relatively weaker. For those of you that are, taking the CBSE or plan to move into the CBSE curriculum, you typically get to take 5 subjects and you can choose your stream. As is the case for all 3 of the Indian curricula, you do get to choose between science, commerce, as well as art. So you get to choose one. You do get to take English. English is compulsory for the CBSE. It is compulsory for the ISC. It is compulsory for your state board as well. And you do get to choose an elective as well. So that does help increase some diversity in your curriculum. So if you are an ISC student who's studying at, say, Cathedral, for example, you do have the opportunity to take science and have one elective that is a non-science related elective as well. So you could take something from the commerce or the humanities section, such as accounts, such as psychology. You do have that opportunity that helps increase the diversity of your curriculum. Whereas advanced placement exams are considered, whereas the CBSE is considered, it is a very, very strong curriculum. AP exam should only be taken if you want to showcase additional diversity in your curriculum or if you want to showcase additional strength and rigor towards a particular subject. For example, if you're a student who wants to apply for, say, electrical engineering, doing an AP in Calculus BC, which is an advanced placement exam, these are offered by the College Board. They are external exams that you can take on outside of school. In that case, it would make sense and add value for you to take on an AP exam. Whereas the ISC is considered, definitely the AP exams will add to strength and rigor to your curriculum, keeping in mind the ISC is not considered to be the toughest of the Indian curricula and is considered to be slightly easier than, the IB or the A levels or the American high school diploma. So in that case, taking AP exams would be helpful. ISC, again, you get to choose between science, commerce, as well as art, and you can take from 5 to 7 subjects. All boards are accepted by universities globally. There are a few exceptions that I'll tell you in a minute, but CBSE, ISC, or HSC don't stop you from applying to destinations abroad when considering global admissions. So for all of you who have the question or the doubt that, do I have to do an international curriculum in order to be considered by a university? Will that kind of, make a large difference or consider me differently? Whereas the applicant pool is considered, that's not the case. There are different ways in which you can enhance the current curricula, be it CBSE, ISC, or HSC, by taking some sort of AP exams as well as getting high scores in the subjects that you are studying. Whereas HSC or the Indian curricula is considered, again, the state curricula, it is considered to be relatively weaker from the 3, like I've mentioned. In that case, if you are looking at competitive schools internationally, for example, in the US, there have been examples of students that have been working with us that have been admitted to universities such as Harvard, that have taken the HSC curricula, that have strengthened their profile by taking 4 to 5 APs, that definitely is a good number, whereas the HSC curriculum is considered. If you are considering areas like, you want to go down the Indian route and you are considering the JEE, which again is very, very rigorous, you are considering pursuing maybe medicine, and NEET is important. When pursuing degrees such as traditional engineering or medicine, the HSC curriculum might actually be favorable and suitable for you, because the time commitment at college as well as the rigor of the curriculum is slightly lesser. And whereas medicine and engineering are concerned, and the traditional options is something that you're looking at, what matters is your rank in their particular test. So in that case, the HSC is a strong curriculum as well to support your larger goals. Yeah, we'll speak a little bit about the international curricula as well. There are 3 kinds of them, and I'll let Avita give you a brief on each of them.
Yeah, so the 3 international curriculums that you guys are going to come across is the IB diploma, the Cambridge A levels, and then the American high school curriculum. It's not likely that a lot of you guys will have the American high school curriculum, but I'm just going to go over it if you guys are, thinking about it or considering kind of moving forward. So really quickly, the IB is, I would say, it's considered one of the strongest sort of curriculums across the world. So if you are taking the IB and that's what you guys are going to go into, yay, you get to go down the incredibly tough route of taking the IB. So you guys are already in a very strong position. I do want to make it clear, if you guys are taking the CBSE, you are also in a very strong position. So I don't want you to listen to me right now and be like, oh gosh, do I need to switch? With the IB, you'll have 6 subjects that you have to take. So like Nenika kind of mentioned, that diversity, I'm going to go into more detail about that in a bit more later. So don't worry about it too much. But what's great about the IB is that you get a range of subjects that you have to take. You have to take English, math, science, humanities. You can take an art if you want to, and you have to take a second language. So similar to sort of, CBSE in that you get a range, you get a little bit of a larger range with the IB. So I think, that's something that universities really appreciate when it comes to this program. You have 3 subjects at the higher level, which are usually the subjects I would like for you to consider when you're thinking about your university. So, if you're looking at studying art or architecture or product design, I'd like for you guys to think about maybe taking art at the HL and then math to really highlight those 2 variables that are required for that subject. If you're taking history or international affairs, think about taking English, history, global politics, these sort of subjects. So what you want to think about when you're choosing your HLs is, okay, well, I want to study X. What are the sort of key components required to study X? And then from there, choose what your HLs are fitting within the sort of parameters of the IB diploma. I hope that makes sense to everybody. If there's any questions about this, just, feel free to raise your hand. I'm happy to get to it. On the standard level, that's what I would say is just you're kind of like, well, I have to fill a need, so take the standard levels. Usually a lot of the kids will end up taking their second language or English because those are usually just the subjects they're like, I'm not going to study this at university, so I'll try to take my second language or my English at the standard level. Your 6th subject in that sense actually leaves a lot of room for you guys to kind of play around. It doesn't always have to fill a need. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you are just like, well, I want to take these strong subjects and this 6th subject is going to just make me a stronger applicant. Sometimes you're like, well, I've got a really good subject mix with my 5. So the 6th subject can be for you guys to just be like, you know what? I really love music. And I know it's a lot of work and I know it's a lot of like portfolio stuff that I have to do, but I'm going to take it. And so the 6 subjects for some of our kids can just be that subject that you're like, you know what? I want to study this. I've never had a chance to do it. I probably won't do it later. Let me just enjoy myself a little bit now. So we can kind of play around with what you want to do with the IB in that sense, which I think is a really cool component of the program. You have your additional stuff. You have the theory of knowledge, extended essay, and your CAS. I won't go into too much detail about that. If you guys are thinking of taking the IB, you should definitely talk to your counselors about this. But what I will say is theory of knowledge is, a lot of philosophy. It's kind of asking that why question. Your extended essay is a large 4,000 word essay that you will write in one subject. My recommendation is you do it based on the subject you want to study. So, if you're going to do engineering, I would recommend that you do it in math or physics or chem if you're doing like chemical engineering or something. Just to really highlight a little bit more of that, this is what I really want to study, and this is my unique perspective within that. I think the extended, I think the extended essay is a really cool way for you guys to really highlight your unique point of view as well. If you are someone who wants to study business, but you also really love Kathak, let's say you're a dancer, you could easily look at the financials behind Kathak, or maybe if you're doing international affairs, look at the soft power that India has through yoga or dance or Bollywood, so we can kind of play around with a lot of our unique perspectives. If you love cricket, maybe do like the finances behind the IPL. And it's a really cool way for you guys to really highlight your unique perspective within what you want to study. So I think, we take the extended essay really seriously, but I want you guys to have a little bit more fun with what you're thinking of exploring, how you're thinking of exploring, and really thinking about like, what? I bet no one else is thinking about it this way, but I really think this is a cool topic. And that can be a really good way for you guys to stand out from all the other applicant pool that's there. And at the end, it offers a holistic approach. And that's really what universities are looking for. So that's really what I want you guys to focus on when you're, figuring out your curriculum and the subjects that you guys are choosing. The A levels is a little different. The diversity kind of gets put to the back for the A levels. You actually focus on 3 to 6 subjects. Now, if you're a really competitive school, so let's say you're at Aditya Birla, which is down here in Mumbai, a lot of your students are taking, a lot of your friends and everyone in your grade are probably taking 5 to 6 subjects. Now, what does that mean? If you don't want to take 5 to 6 subjects, it's not the end of the world. However, you have to be aware that you are being compared first and foremost to what everyone around you is doing, and that's your school. So if your school has an average of taking 4 to 5, 6 A-level subjects, you really should consider, am I at that same level? Okay. Now, if you are that kid who's like, this is not for me, that's fine. It's not the end of the world, but you guys just have to be aware that this is what you're going to be compared against. Okay. My recommendation for most of my students is you do 3 A-level subjects and 1 or 2 AS level subjects. Your AS levels are the subjects that you will only take for 1 year. Your A levels are the subjects that you will take for 2 years. So this is a really good way for you to hit that sort of 4 to 5 subjects that everyone else around you is taking. But you focus on the 3 that you really like for the 2 years that you're going to be in high school. Similar to the IB, there is an EPQ, so extended project qualification. Unlike the IB, this is optional in the A levels. That being said, I think that the extended the EPQ is a wonderful resource. It's similar to what I said about the extended essay. It's a research paper that you can just do through school. And how many of our counselors have said you should think about doing a research paper? Well, what's the easiest way to highlight what the level of research that you've done? The Cambridge will grade it for you. So university will look at this and go, well, I got an A, so I know what that A translates to. I know the level of work that goes into it. I know the type of writing that goes into it, the amount of research that goes into it. It's just a really simple way for you to kind of turn around and go, you know what, I am going to do the research, but I'm going to get graded for it, because that way universities can look at my work that I've done and they know exactly what level of research I've done. And so for a lot of our students who are like considering research, the EPQ could be a really good alternative if that's something you want to consider. Now, if you love research, do some more. No one's stopping you. But I think this is a really good starting point for a lot of our students. It's 5,000 words. It's a little bit more than the extended essay. But again, you get to really highlight your unique perspective. We have, you could do, if you really want to do engineering or architecture, maybe look at carbon neutral ways of building in India, and what does that entail? Maybe build a prototype. So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of play around with this to really add to your profile. In India, for Indian students, so be aware of this. If you guys decide, I'm gonna go next year to a boarding school in the UK, or maybe you are moving and you plan on studying in, I don't know, Singapore or somewhere else, the requirements for English change. So if you're in the UK, as an Indian student, you're not actually required to take English as a mandatory subject in the A levels. Okay. However, if you're in India, you are required to take English as a mandatory subject. Okay. This doesn't mean you turn around tomorrow and say, Mom and Dad, I want to move to the UK so I can avoid English. But it's just something for you guys to be aware of. Okay. What I like about the A levels versus the IB is the IB requires you to kind of be a jack of all trades. The A levels lets you go into a lot of depth. So if you're someone that's, really good at physics, chem, and math, and you are genuinely struggling with like the humanities, and you cannot do a second language to save your life, and you're just like, please get me out of this, the A levels could be a really good option for you because it's a lot more depth. You focus on the subjects you want to study, and you can really just focus on doing the best you can with these 3 or 4 subjects that you have skills and you have the aptitude for. What I want you guys to be aware of, this does not mean that the A levels is easier than the IB. Please do not think that. Netic and I will go into a little bit more depth into the differences and the similarities between the two, but I don't want anyone to walk away from here thinking that the A levels is going to be the easier option. Okay? Then we have the high school curriculum in America. What I want you guys to be aware of is there's actually no standardized US high school curriculum. So if you're in Texas or in California, your requirements are different. In California, you have something called an A to G requirement that does not exist in Texas. So don't worry about like, well, my cousin is in New York and they're asking her to do something else. Okay, that's great. You're not in New York. So I really want you guys to not worry about what everyone else is doing around you in America. Focus on your school and what's going on with your requirements. The curriculum is divided into 4 courses. So there's your core courses. So that's, the basic level, your advanced or AP classes. That is done through the College Board. I will go into more detail about that in a bit. And then we have our honors courses. Honors courses matter a lot if you are looking at doing in-state schools. So if you're in Texas, let's say, and you are really looking at the University of Texas as an option for university, taking honors classes is going to mean a lot to that. However, if you're in Texas and you're like, I want to apply to the University of Massachusetts or, the state universities of New York, really doesn't matter. Okay, it's just going to show them, okay, he or she is a strong student, but it's not going to go further than that. However, they are put into different brackets when you are looking at staying in state. They run on something called a credit system. It's about 4 credits per semester. You end up with a certain number of credits. It depends on the school. I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but there is a number of teaching hours that you will have in class, and that is what equates to the number of credits that you'll get. I believe it's about 40 teaching hours is about 4 credits, give or take a couple of hours here or there. And you need to have a certain number of credits to move on to the next year. So when they say, what is your standing? You're a junior, you're a freshman, a sophomore, or senior, junior, whatever. You could be theoretically in grade 12, but have the standing of a junior because you don't have the number of credits required to actually be a senior. So then you'll have to make up your credits kind of later on. So when you're working with your counselor, really make sure that when you're choosing your subjects, that you are counting down the number of credits that you will have at the end of the year, and you're always hitting that minimum amount, because the last thing we want is for you guys to hit grade 11, and then it's like, wait, I don't have the standing to actually go and become a senior next year. So now I'm going to have to spend my summer doing additional courses to get those credits. We really want to avoid that, okay? We really don't want you guys to do too much studying over the summer. We'd like for you guys to try to have a little bit of fun and try to, focus on your profile. I can see that there are a few questions. They're specific to subjects, so I'm gonna touch on that when I kind of go into more subject-related parts of the program. Does anyone have any questions about sort of the curriculums that I've just gone over? Okay, great. So we'll just move on then. Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of kind of, the components of the IB versus the A levels. But in a nutshell, I think the IB, keeping in mind that you do have 6 subjects that you have to take, it is mandatory for you to get the diploma program to take the 6 subjects, do the extended essay, do the TOK, which is your theory of knowledge class, as well as your CAS, which is your creativity, action, and service, 150 hours there. The IB definitely is a curriculum that allows you to keep more options open for a longer period of time, as you have to take your math, you have to take your 2 languages, you have to take a science, a social science, and the 6th subject where you can either do visual art, theater, or take another science or social science. It does allow students that are unsure to keep their options open a little longer. So definitely a lot more diverse on that front as compared to the A levels. The IB isn't a good fit for any student who particularly detests a subject. For example, if math is definitely not your subject and it's something that, although we might reiterate to you in our individual sessions as well as now, that math definitely is so important and is considered strongly by admissions officers, regardless of the university of the destination that you're applying. If it is a subject that you just don't enjoy and don't want to take it, then considering something like an A levels would make a lot more sense, because you do have that option and that flexibility. Besides English, there's no other subject that is part of the A levels program that you have to take. The A levels lets you focus on 2 additional subjects, or 3 if you like, in depth. So if you would think of the IBHL subjects, the A levels 1 notch more in depth, right? So that's where kind of there's a lot more depth in learning, whereas the A levels is considered, whereas the IB, of course, you have 3 subjects at the higher level and the standard level, so you can choose which subjects you want to go a little bit more depth into, as well as the subjects that you would like to kind of just learn about and have them on your subject mix. So that's kind of, I think, the primary difference between the IB as well as the A levels. Both of them do have a research component. The IB has an extended essay and the A levels has an EPQ. At the A levels, the EPQ is considered as half a subject, half an A level, and you can either take it or not take it depending on your preference. Whereas for the IB, if you want the diploma program and not the certificate, or are considering the IBCP, in that case, the extended essay is mandatory for you as part of the IB. Yeah, I think that I think covers it. We can take up any more questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay, so now I'm going to go into probably what a lot of you guys are thinking about, which is what exactly are the AP exams? The AP exams are actually administered globally by the College Board, which is the only, I would say, standardized education system that exists in the US. It's the same. So you take AP computer science in Mississippi, it's going to be exactly the same as in New Jersey. So it's a good way for universities and sort of anyone to be like, okay, well, you came from X and you came from Y, but you both got a 4 on the AP. I know exactly what that means. So that is sort of a good way to standardize where you are. It's college level assessments. These are not supposed to be easy. You're not supposed to be like, well, I want to do 7 APs. These are college level courses. We do really want you guys to think about what you guys can handle, what your aptitude is, what your interests are before making these decisions. And we really want to make sure that, it doesn't come at the extent of your classes. So why should you consider doing an AP? One, it showcases academic rigor and aptitude. That being said, I personally do not recommend that you take the AP exam if you're doing the IB. Now, if you are wanting to study, actually a really good example is I want to study journalism or English literature, and my school is not offering IB English literature, or my school is not offering the A levels English at the A level. It's only at the AS level. In that sense, do the AP in English, in literature. That's what's going to help them kind of see like, okay, they've got the skills for this. Those are the only real reasons I would recommend that students who are taking the IB or the A levels really consider doing an AP. If you're doing the A levels and you're thinking about maybe doing an additional AP and you're like, I want to do additional AP biology. Well, why not just see if there's an AS level in biology instead? Because that stays within your school. And that's a really good way for them to kind of identify where you are with the other kids in your school. I will say it's not taken as it's taken as an addition. It's not taken as an alternative. So I don't want you to turn around and say, you know, I hate my economics teacher in my school, so I'm not going to take economics. So what I'll do is I'll take the AP in economics. We can't do that, you guys. It would still be better and stronger for you guys to take economics in school than to take the AP, especially if you're doing any of the international curriculum. With CBSE, it's pretty much the same. I think unless you guys are looking at a very competitive school and you really want to showcase that you can keep up with the other kids that are applying to this school, the CBSE is diverse enough, it's strong enough, you don't have to take the AP. Now, if there's a couple of specific requirements, your counselors will help you and we'll kind of figure out what that is and we'll figure out what APs you should take. With ISC, it's the same, but I would say definitely think about it, especially in grade 11 and 12. You know, it's not the strongest curriculum. So if you are thinking, well, I want to do engineering, maybe taking a couple of APs in calculus or physics or something like that will help you stand out and help you showcase that rigor and that aptitude. And it's good for US admissions officers, especially, to see that you kind of hit that minimum requirement that's required for our for the US universities. With HSE, I promise you all of your counselors, the state boards, I promise you your counselors are going to be asking you guys to do the AP, so just kind of be prepared for that. That being said, we're never going to ask you guys to go crazy. We're never going to ask you guys to do 7 in a year. We will, however, ask you guys to think about maybe doing 2 or 3, but you shouldn't be doing more than 3. It's really hard on you guys. You have a lot of other stuff going on. So at least for your mental health as well, try not to do more than 3 a year and definitely talk to your counselor so that we can kind of plan out your 4 years. So we're never overwhelming you at any point. What's also great about the APs is you get college credit. So you know how I talked about how the US high schools have credits? The US universities also have credits. This does not apply to the UK. I will be very clear here. It does not apply to Singapore or Hong Kong. However, it can apply to Canada as well. So if you guys are thinking about Canada and you're like, maybe I want to get a couple of college credits, some Canadian universities do take the AP exam, so that could really work in your favor. If you have college credits for certain subjects, you can skip those subjects at university. And that's really good for you because then you're like, well, I hate French and I have my college credit in French and maybe I'll, substitute that by taking this, there's actually a superheroes through history course at Princeton, which I found was really interesting. There's also a Beyonce and sort of her influence on culture course at Harvard. So maybe you're like, I want to take the Beyonce class. We can kind of do that instead of doing French. So there's a lot of ways that we can kind of play around with, making you guys get those college credits. Also, you get a couple of college credits before you arrive at university. You get to leave university earlier. I think your parents are probably just like, oh, that's something that I want to think about. In terms of grading scale, we have 1 to 5. 5 is the highest, 1 is the lowest. Rule of thumb, guys, a 4 and above will get you college credit. Anything lower than that is a case by case dependent on what the university is willing to offer. But rule of thumb, it's 4 and above. So if you're getting less than a 4, we probably won't have you guys, submit that score. We may look at doing it again. We'll have these discussions kind of based on what the requirements are. In India and outside of America, students can actually consider taking them from grade 9 onwards. There are a few subjects that are a little bit simpler, so you can take them in grade 9. In the US, they actually have requirements, so there'll probably be a stream that you have to go through. So maybe there's a couple of prerequisites that you have to have. So more likely than not, in the US, while you can do it in your school, you probably won't be able to do it until about grade 10, grade 11. However, there's nothing actually stopping you from just taking them on your own outside of the school. I hope that kind of answers everyone's questions about the AP exams. We will go into more detail about the type of AP exams later. They're offered in May, and registration actually closes in November for the first round of registration, and it's end of February for the second round of registration. So if you guys are thinking about doing it next year, I recommend that you start having conversations with your counselor about this in, I don't know, August. It's a good amount of time, gives you 2 months to really think about it, have a couple of discussions, and then make a really, clear, concise sort of, we know we have all the information, and then we take a decision together. So August is usually when I recommend that you guys have these conversations with your counselors. Great.
We will be doing another session closer to time as well, just to focus on the AP and the ACT and the SAT. So you will have a little bit more clarity on specific APs that would be relevant to you at a particular point in time, based on your grade. So those are the conversations we'll take up with you independently. Again, moving on to identifying finally if an Indian or international curricula works for you. Definitely, there's no preference for an Indian or an international curriculum, whereas universities internationally are considered. Both are accepted. There are a few exceptions to the rule, whereas Oxford is considered University of Oxford in the UK, and you're applying for medicine, then an Indian curricula is not accepted in that particular case. The reason I'm sharing this information now is so that you can plan early on if medicine is something that you definitely do want to pursue. Of course, students by grade 9 or 10, keeping in mind it's such a technical field, requires years of study, do have an idea of if that's something they want to pursue by grade 10. Grade 9 or 10 is when students have some clarity. But if medicine is something that you want to pursue, then it would make a lot more sense to take the international curricula if you are considering going abroad to study. Cambridge, for a couple of their programs, does require students to have 5 or more APs with 5s in each of them. So typically, students submit their AP scores if they are 5. At some point, we do allow some submissions of 4s, but typically it only adds weightage to your application if you are already doing another curriculum as if you have a 5 in an AP. You do have the option to choose if you want to submit it or not. So that's a discretionary call that we can take once we have scores out. And how many APs you've done, if there maybe 3 out of 5 we want to submit, or we want to re-give one, maybe you just fell short by a few points and it's at a 4 and we want to push it up. Those opportunities are something that, as you plan early and prepare for these tests early on, which is why starting early is so much more beneficial, you do have the opportunity to take the test again as well if need be. State boards recognition varies for a couple universities internationally. Specifically in the UK, there are a couple universities, like I highlighted, for Oxford and Cambridge, that may have specifications for a particular program that you're applying into. In the UK, it's a very black and white system. You have entry requirements on the website for the program that you're applying into at the college that you want to apply into. That gives you clarity early on as to, if your curriculum will be accepted or not, or if there's anything else that you need to do, such as APs, to supplement that. However, these are just handpicked few courses and few colleges where you might have that situation. In the Indian curriculum, definitely subject choices are a lot more limited. As much as you can push yourself moving forward with science as your primary option, the math, the science, definitely core subjects that will help. If you decide to take the ACT, for example, as well, they do have a science component, and definitely the skill sets that both math and science support you with, regardless of what you want to study, be it philosophy, psychology, any other degree that you do choose. The skill sets that they help you develop in terms of analytical skill sets, in terms of application, are definitely considered to be very, very valuable and appreciated by admissions officers when looking at your subject mix. So if the Indian curricula is something that you do decide to go ahead with, try and stick to the science as much as you can, push yourself. The fact that you do have the opportunity to take an additional elective, you can always add a program in psychology if you're interested in the humanities space, or you can add a program in accounts or business if you're interested in the commerce space. But trying and sticking with the science is always the best option, because you can always move from science to commerce or art, but moving the other way around is not possible. So in that mindset, if you do enjoy science and are willing to explore it, regardless of if you want to do something in medicine, biochemistry, engineering, it is preferable to have it. CBSE, ISC, very widely recognized. There is no disadvantage whatsoever if you're applying with either of these curricula. What's important definitely is the subjects that you choose, which is why, like I mentioned earlier, having some of the science and the core math and English definitely is something that is recommended. Indian curricula definitely is a lot more, rote-based learning. Definitely for those of you that are doing the ICSE, if at all anyone is on this call, you are aware of the 28 chapters in history and civics that you have to learn. So definitely a lot more kind of focus on rote-based learning. Definitely considered to be a rigorous program as well, and it's something that is not looked at in a disadvantageous way by any means by international institutions. So something that you can go ahead with if you decide. You also have the opportunity, if the Indian curricula is what you've taken for grade 9 and 10, you do have the opportunity to move to an international curricula. So if you've taken, personal example, I've done the ICSE and move to the IB, definitely it does take some time to get accustomed to the new learning style, because the international curricula do require a lot more application. The questioning style is different. For example, a paper in your ICSE might say, list the events that took place that led to World War One. In the IB, that same question would be phrased as, IB or A levels rather, the same question would be phrased as, to what extent do you think World War One was justifiable? Right? So it has a little bit more, it gives you a little bit more scope to reflect, while you still do need to know the facts, and therefore the international curricula by no means is easier. It does require you to know the facts, the details, and apply yourself a little bit more. So that's kind of where you kind of, take a call depending on the learning style that suits you. If you are doing well with the Indian curricula, it's something that you're thriving in. Definitely you can continue with that all the way through 11 and 12. You don't require an international curricula to apply. If you would like to shift your learning style and have it a little bit more attuned with what the university level, programs, curriculum, teaching style is, then the international curricula is slightly more aligned with that. You do have the opportunity to change after grade 10. So again, these are discussions you can have with your counselor as you are in grade 9 and 10 as to which international curricula to pick, and if it's a wise choice in your particular case to move your curricula or not.
Okay. So we're just going to move on to subject selection and hopefully answer a lot more of your specific questions.
Yeah, I can see a lot of questions on the chat for the IB subject, so I will cover that as well based on, curricula, based on your area of interest, which are critical subjects, which are subjects you must have, and which are subjects that are recommended or preferred or that you can take. So here's an example of the recommended high school curriculum that Boston University actually puts out. It definitely focuses on the importance of English. So this is what they would like to see: 4 years of English, 3 to 4 years of math. So I do know that the ICSE does allow you the option to drop math, but having math up until grade 12, I know the A levels as well, you have the option to take it or not. It is definitely preferred as it is considered to be a core subject. Your core subjects are your English, your second language, your math, your lab science, your social science. Yeah. Again, in terms of lab sciences, if you want to continue with, engineering, biochemistry, anything to do with science, or not, it is preferred to have 3 to 4 years of lab sciences. It is preferred to have 3 to 4 years of history and or social science, and 2 to 4 years of a foreign language. So this is a snapshot. Again, it's an example. It's not something that you have to go by 100%. There are exceptions to the rule and discussions that we can have in your particular case as to what is suited for you. But this is an example of what a university looks at from a high school curriculum, or what are the core subjects that they like to see. Your core subjects are a lot more important. Your subject selection is very, very critical compared to your curriculum selection. So regardless of the curricula that you choose, if your subject mix is strong, that definitely will get you ahead in the applicant pool that is being considered. Yeah, so taking easy subjects, feeling that, I can get higher scores by maybe dropping the science, or I can get higher scores, whereas, the IB is considered to take easier subjects, right? The subjects that are looked at slightly to be easier are subjects like business. So even if you are applying for a degree in business, the most important subject would be math. Second subject that you could take when considering social science is economics. If you are taking two social sciences and wish to take business, that can be the third option. But when faced with having to choose one or the other, economics is considered to be a lot more theoretical, definitely to consider to be a lot more rigorous as well, and it does have a stronger math component too. But again, math is the most important subject. There are a lot of universities in the UK actually, when you're applying for business or economics, actually put math as part of the required subject and the entry requirements that they are looking for in that particular subject. So that is the most important subject there. Subject selection, again, your math, science, why are they so important? As we have mentioned time and again through the presentation, is because of the skill sets that they help you develop, like critical thinking, problem solving, research skills, your willingness to challenge yourself definitely does support, whereas the SAT or the ACT is considered as well. Both the SAT and the ACT do have a math component. For the SAT, it's math and English. For the ACT, is math, English, and there is a science component as well. Supports with quantitative analysis, again, which is part of so many different subjects that you take on. Economics itself, right? They have a whole paper on econometrics. Psychology as well, there is a lot to do with data, whereas interviews are considered if that's a method that students are using when doing some sort of research or making some sort of conclusions. So definitely these are important skill sets that core subjects, specifically math and science, do support with, and which is why they are considered very important at every stage through your high school curriculum. Vita, can we move to the next slide? Okay, great. Thank you. Subject selection based on your academic interest. Again, as you can see here, highlighted economics, business, management, marketing, business analytics. The most important subject here is math. There's no, applying without math for any of these majors would make your academic profile relatively weak. So math is the most important, and then yes, you can take additional subjects. If you're doing the A levels, you've got your math, your English, and then you have the opportunity maybe to take one science. And if you're taking four subjects, you can take, something from economics, business, accounts, whatever you enjoy. Yeah. Medicine, again, most important subjects are biology, physics, chemistry, and math is also recommended, and it is required for your examinations as well. Engineering, computer science, AI, data science, math, and physics are the most important subjects. Chemistry is recommended. If you don't take it as part of your curriculum, you always have the opportunity to take it externally as part of an AP. There are 2 to 3 APs offered in chemistry as well that you can consider taking. And whereas, communications, humanities, languages are considered, there aren't, of course, English is something that you do take. Math is preferred, science is always preferred, regardless of what you study, but there are no prerequisite subjects that you have to take. So even if you're, a student applying for psychology and you have math, you have English, you have biology, not having psychology necessarily is absolutely okay when applying for psychology. Yeah, as long as you've showcased skill sets that, in biology, there is a huge component in psychology that covers biology, right? The whole biological level of analysis actually is to do with biology. So as long as you've taken biology as a subject, maybe focused on your extracurricular activities, showcased your unique talent by taking, indulging in extracurricular activities that showcase your interest towards psychology, like a research paper, or you've done, some sort of an interview analysis on a particular topic, that is something that could work as well. Yeah, so again, this is any specific questions, we can take them on. I think we just have a slide or two to go, and then we can answer any specific questions that you guys have on subject selection. This is just to give you a snapshot of the core subjects that are typically important or requested for by certain universities in countries like the UK. In the US, there's no kind of mandatory list of subjects that they kind of, ask for on the application. But from years of data and analyzing student profiles, we have noticed that these are the subjects that typically stand out for majors that are highlighted here. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to really quickly kind of talk about the sort of career options that you guys do have based on the sort of majors that you choose. What I want you guys to get out of this is that there is no singular path. You know, just because you did engineering in university doesn't mean you have to be an engineer. Just because you did history in university doesn't mean you have to be a historian. Maybe you're just like, you know what, I love history, I get these research skills, I get these writing skills. If we look at things from sort of the big four consulting firms, firms like PwC will look at humanities majors just as much as they will look at business majors. And the reason for that is they do consult with a lot of NGOs and nonprofits and museums and schools. So even an education degree can still mean you can end up working for like a PwC or an EY or a BCG. So what I want you guys to really think about is, at university, what are the skills that I'm gaining? That's what's really going to help you guys figure out what career you want, as opposed to the name that you have on the degree, okay? So if you guys are looking at maybe going into public health, it doesn't mean you can't be a doctor, especially in America. You know, there is no pre-med track. So taking something like a public health or a sports science or psychology still means that you could go into medicine. Even in the UK, you could study medicine and then work for a pharmaceutical company. So it doesn't always mean that you have to be a doctor. What I want you guys to really think about from whatever it is that you want to do is, again, skills that I'm gaining and less about the name of the degree that I'm going to be getting, okay? So the big thing that I really want you guys to get from this talk is diversity versus rigor. We've kind of talked a little bit about the importance of diversity, the importance of those core subjects in your subject selection, but it's not always possible for everybody. What we really want for you guys to try is to get a good balance of diversity and rigor. And rigor is strength. So think about, you know, the strength of the subjects that you're taking. Is business management as strong as economics? Is it as strong as history? Is biology, actually, biology is a really strong subject. So is biology as strong as maybe like an ESS? Or if I want to study computer science, is computer science the best option for me? Or would it actually show more academic strength for me to take like chemistry and then do some computer science projects outside of school? Okay. So we really want to think about the strength of the subjects that we want that we are taking. And when we're looking at the sort of competitive majors, and there are some competitive majors, out of India, I would say the three most competitive majors are probably engineering, computer science, and then economics/business. So what that means is we really want to take as many of these strong subjects as we can. And yes, I did see a question about having to take math at HL or SL if you want to study business. You'll have to take it at HL because you have to think about there's so many other kids that are applying. How do I show that academic strength? I show that academic strength by taking the subject that that the universities want, which is math. The hardest level that I can take in math is by taking it at HL. I'm not asking you to take math AA if that is not something you guys can handle, but take HLAI because that is at least at the highest level that you can, and we're still showing academic strength. Okay. What I will say is that I usually go to the London School of Economics with a lot of the sort of humanities focused subjects and think about, you know, what it is that I should be looking at. And LSE actually says they want math at the HL. They don't care if it's AA or AI if you're doing economics. And what they want is a strong second subject. So they would prefer things like English, physics, physics, chem, biology, history, geography, like, you know, these very strong subjects versus you taking economics and business, because their thought is, well, I'll teach you the economics and the business. You don't need to show me that you can do it at high school. Remember, your university years for a lot of the sort of humanities subjects, they don't expect you to come in with that back end of knowledge. The US has 4 years because they expect to teach you a lot of things. They don't expect you to, you know a lot of information before you come in. However, you know, if you are looking at the more technical subjects, so like engineering, computer science, those sort of subjects, there is a range of skills and knowledge you should have before you walk onto campus. And that way, taking those subjects is going to help you identify, make you a stronger candidate, which is going to give you that rigor. Diversity is not for everyone. Just because you want to have a diverse subject mix does not mean that you are good at everything. No one is good at everything. So if you are not the kid that can take geography, even though your school is offering geography, and you're like, well, I know that's a strong humanities, but I cannot do geography to save my life. We can take a lower level of that humanities subject because we're still getting that diversity, but maybe we're, not being able to take the hardest subjects. We kind of, play around with the rigor a little bit. We want to try to make a mix that works for your strength. Everyone's strengths are different. So just because your friend is taking math, chem, and physics at the HL or in the A levels or in, the CBSE and they're taking the science stream and you can't do that, that's fine. We can still play around with getting a little bit of diversity, a little bit of strength, and make you as strong of a candidate as you can be. And that's kind of what I want you guys to kind of focus on. And yeah, last thing, how do I choose the right subject mix for me? One, I want you guys to look at the minimum subject requirements for the major of your choice. So if your major is engineering, well, what are the minimum requirements? It's physics and math. Are you hitting that? Great, cool. So we've hit that first step. Next, do you have all the core subjects in your mix? Are you getting that English? Are you getting that second language? Are you getting that humanities? That's not going to be possible with the A levels because, limited number of subjects that you can take. However, you saw before that we require 2 to 4 years with a lot of this sort of additional subjects. So with second language, 2 to 4 years. With humanities, it's 3 to 4 years. We can kind of play around. Maybe we'll take it in AS. Maybe we won't take it at an A level. But look at the requirements that are there and kind of play around with that. And then from there, the last thing I want you guys to think about is my subject mix diverse and is my subject mix strong? If it's diverse but not strong, what can we change to make it stronger? If it's strong but maybe not diverse, is there something that you could drop to make it a little bit more diverse? Or is this the best option for whatever you want to apply to? And we leave it at that and we'll go with that strong subject selection instead. So that's what I want you guys to kind of look at when we're making the subject mix. All right, so we're just gonna go to questions. I know we're running out of time, so maybe we'll just take about 5 to 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions.
You've answered a couple of them. If anyone would like to want me to elaborate on any of the specific questions that we've answered here, one of them I think I addressed through when I was speaking about subject selection and considering math as being the most important subject when you're looking at business or economics. Any other particular questions that you guys would like me to focus more on? Any more questions that you'd like to ask us?
If somebody has specific questions about your mix as well, feel free to ask that. We're happy to kind of help you guys make that decision now if that's something you want to talk about as well.
And if you want to speak about that independently with your counselor as well, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, this is Priyanka. May I ask the question, please?
Yeah, Priyanka, go ahead.
So, I know you've replied to my question on pursuing IB and, because if you take music, you're not able to pursue both the sciences in terms of physics and chemistry. You have to choose between the two if you're
Correct.
also doing music, right?
Correct.
So, and you did say that as you could do chemistry as an AP. So
Correct.
the question was that, does that become like too intense then to cover in a 2-year framework, or is it like manageable in terms of, rigor and yeah.
So Priyanka, again, thinking of it from a larger perspective, of course, you then think of 7 subjects instead of 6. Every subject can't be strong. So you play around in terms of the higher level, standard level. What is the level of rigor that you want to kind of maintain? For example, dance is what you said, right? Which is the 6th subject?
No, music.
Music. Yeah. Okay, great. So for example, music is something that, for example, you take at the higher level. English, depending on, your child's competence is one that you have to take, which is considered to be relatively tougher on the higher level. So again, then you take subjects like your English, you take subjects like your, like your math, physics, probably at a lower level. You need to balance it out because 7 subjects is a lot. So while,
Mhm.
or you start early. So the chemistry APs are done before you even kind of hit grade 11 and 12, or you do it like, the summer between grade 10 and 11.
I think, Priyanka, it also depends on what the minimum requirement, like I said, is for the major. If chemistry is not required for the major, and
Yeah.
that's why your child is like, well, I want to take music, then there's no need to take chemistry.
Yeah,
If
but the child still doesn't know what the major is going to be. He's still
Got it.
confused,
Got it.
right?
Yeah.
that's fine.
No, I completely understand. In that case, having chemistry as an AP, I think is good, at least for now. We can start with the chemistry APs, and maybe in a year we have a little bit more clarity if we want to pursue and do a second AP in chemistry or not.
Got it. This is
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else have any other questions?
Jaisal, did I manage to answer your question? Clarity there?
Yeah, hi Nanika.
Hi,
Yeah, so
Jaisal.
I had a question about
Tell me.
business. If one is looking at pursuing business,
Correct.
whether he or she should, be looking at economics and business both, or just economics, or does economics have a better weightage than business as a subject?
So Jason, the most important subject is math, number one. Number two, in terms of
Yes,
economics or business, both are not required per se. You don't have to have them as part of your subject mix if you're applying for business as well. Economics is considered to be more rigorous as it is more theoretical. So if you have the
Right.
option to choose between econ and business, I would take economics. Not having taken business at all is completely okay as well. What curriculum again? Arjun, right? Jason, Arjun's
yeah,
normal.
IB. Yes,
IB.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Lovely. So in the IB, for example, you do have the option to take two social sciences. So if Arjun
Hmm.
isn't taking, a sixth subject that is art or music, then in that case, he would have the opportunity to take econ and business. In that case,
Hmm.
preference would be to take math at the higher level, econ at the higher level, and business at the
Hmm.
standard.
Okay, okay. And if he wants to pick one of the sciences because he's good at
Of course, he
physics,
should. Yes, yes,
so that
he
should
can. He
he
can, yes,
can.
he can,
Okay,
right? Because one of the sciences is compulsory as part of the IB, right? There's one science and then you
okay,
can take two social sciences. So
In
it's
that
either
okay,
physics,
great.
case,
chemistry, or biology.
in that case, if they
Okay,
prefer to take two sciences, then that would also, that would actually be a little bit of a stronger mix. Like I said, like we've kind of said, business and economics is not required. And if you look at the more competitive schools, they would prefer if you didn't take business. So if they are the sort of kid that's like, well, I like chem and physics, then I would rather they do chem and physics versus taking business management. Or if they are, an incredible musician, I would rather they take music instead of taking business, because then we get that diversity as well by taking a strong sort of art subject as well, like music. So we can kind of
right.
play around. So there's
Yeah.
a little bit more diversity that comes into the mix if we kind of take business as a last resort and look at what are the additional strengths, what are the additional interests, and kind of play around with that first.
Okay, great.
Jaisal, in Arjun's case, having met him personally, I think it's okay um to kind of take the business as well because I know he is interested in that subject too. But we can
Yes,
we can
yes.
we can kind of have a more detailed conversation with Arjun involved as well to kind of fixate
Okay.
on it. But yeah,
Yeah,
either
I
way,
think that would be great. That would
yeah,
be
yeah.
great.
Either
Maybe
way,
have,
having your math, econ, and again, it's just not mandatory. We can discuss if we can fit it within the mix or not.
okay.
Yeah, and we can assess if math HL, of course, like you guys may hear us say math HL, of course you do. We do look at your ICSE and IGCSE scores and understand if you can cope with the rigor of HL, and then take a call on if AI, AA, or SL or HL make most sense. This is speaking in an idealistic perspective.
Okay, okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Thank
Jaisal.
you.
So
Thank you.
kind of for the last 2 minutes, does anyone else have questions or anything else they want to discuss? Anything they want us to go over again? If not, it was lovely speaking with everyone today. I hope that the session was helpful. I hope that you guys got a lot of information from it. And definitely please go back and talk to your counselors about the things that was discussed today. So if you guys have specific questions, they can give you that information. And if at any point you do want Nanika and I to kind of, come in and join the call as well, let us know. We're happy to support you guys there as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Would
Thank
you
you
be
all for
sharing
joining.
the presentation? Would you be sharing this
No.
presentation?
We'll be sharing the recording of the session with you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.